staggered by these numbers. 80 million people in the United States of America have diabetes or are on the verge. And at least 6 million are walking around with it and have no idea. And if you don't think diabetes affects you, we spend $174 billion every year on this disease. That's more than AIDS and all the cancers combined. So experts say at this rate, it will bankrupt our healthcare system, correct?
Question.
Yeah.
Question. I don't care which system you happen to prefer. I don't care what party you are. If we don't fix the problem of diabetes in this country, we will bankrupt our future ability to pay for healthcare in the nation. Period.
$174 billion a year. So believe it or not, there is a bright side. Most diabetes is preventable, it is treatable, even reversible. Dr. Oz is here, and your new show's doing great. Congratulations on the Dr. Oz show.
Well, I learned from the best. Yeah. I was well taught.
Thank you. So let's start with what it is. What is diabetes?
So one of the biggest challenges we run into is folks call it a little bit of sugar, right? Yeah. Just to write it off is not so important. I want to be crystal clear on this, so I made an animation.
Okay,
love
that.
Let's pretend you put some food in your mouth, okay? And let's just say it's some tortillas with a little bit of cheese on it. It's pretty benign looking. Goes into your mouth, into the stomach, just freezes for a second. So there's the stomach digesting the food. There's the liver, which has to take all the nutrients and decide what to do with it, including making sugar out of it. Gallbladder's the green stuff, and this organ right here, that yellowish thing, that's the hero today. That's called the pancreas. Let's run this forward. The food goes through the stomach, into the small bowel, the bile, the green stuff, and the yellow stuff from the pancreas, they mix. And there's the pancreas there doing its best to keep up. The food is being washed like you wash soap off, some grease, and the molecules of glucose or sugar get absorbed into the body. Now, it's cut into the bloodstream. The sugar now is traveling around, and these little particles here are insulin. And these insulin particles are being released from the pancreas. And what the pancreas is trying to do, freeze this for a second, is to take the sugar, these blue dots coming in are sugar molecules. And the insulin is saying, come to me, like a funnel. It's allowing the sugar to go past the bloodstream into the tissues. Goes to our brain. Our brain can only use sugar to think. Makes us think better. Goes to our muscles so we can exercise, right? But it does other things too.
Now, is sugar a substitute for the word carbohydrate? Because I know our brain needs carbohydrate to think.
Exactly. Simple carbohydrates are sugars.
Okay.
Complex carbohydrates are sugars with some kind of fiber attached to them.
Okay, got
Real
that.
foods.
Got
okay?
that.
Now, what happens, run this forward, if you have too much sugar going in? We store it in our belly. That's how our ancestors survived.
So does everyone understand the difference between carbohydrates and simple sugars? Who doesn't understand about carbs? Does anyone know can anyone name one carbohydrate that they know of? Pasta's one. Rice, bread, potatoes. Those are carbohydrates that basically break down into, does anyone know? Sugars, exactly. And so it's very important, like we think of simple sugars, like if you drank a glass of juice, that's going to enter the blood system very quickly. It's going to affect you very quickly. And that's why for a diabetic, if they're having a low blood sugar attack, what do they reach for? A little bit of juice, a piece of candy, a little sugar under the tongue, something to get into the bloodstream very quickly so they can start coming to, as a diabetic would understand, okay? Whereas a carbohydrate enters the system, it has to be digested, and it's a longer process. But depending on what types of carbohydrates you're eating, such as if you ate a piece of Wonder Bread or something very refined, a piece of cake, there's no fiber in that. So although it takes time to digest, it's going to be a very quick process getting into the system, okay? Whereas, let's just say you had a whole grain piece of bread that had the proper amount of fiber, or you ate maybe some brown rice that has its own fiber attached with it. That is going to, again, enter the bloodstream. It's going to take, or the digestive system, it's going to take time to break down. But because of the fiber, you're going to get a longer suspended release of those sugars. And so it's better for a diabetic to eat whole carbohydrates rather than refined ones, okay? Yes, dear? A baked potato, so within your carbohydrates, and this is where we won't get into all of that tonight, but within your carbohydrates, you have high and low glycemic ones. So a baked potato, if you ate it with the skin, is definitely going to make it a little bit better, but it's still a high glycemic carbohydrate. So it's going to raise that sugar index a little quicker than a lower glycemic one. So it has a higher glycemic load. Okay, so I think and that's a good question, because it's very important for diabetics to be aware of the high and low glycemic foods. Yes. Rice is somewhat, probably more or less medium, but of course if you have the brown rice, that's what you want. You don't want the white rice, because that's going to make it worse. Yes. Okay. We're going to continue on with our video. Yes, I'm sorry, 1 second. Yes, dear. Black rice is more of a whole grain rice, yes. One of the varieties, yes.
It gets larger and larger, and kaboom! Right there, you saw the leading cause of death in diabetics.
Can we
because
back
a
it just a
diabetic
little bit?
will most likely die from a heart attack, from that very reason. Oprah, same thing in the body. You form a scab, it ruptures. Now you have that little hole that's starting to make.
We're just going to back that up a little bit so that you can get the whole context of what it was saying.
Today, an all-new life-saving event.
I am going to blow your mind.
Dr. Stewart,
Yeah,
just
way
44 years
to the
old.
beginning.
This can't be happening. Then Dr. Ian Smith, Bob Green, and Chef Art Smith, what to eat, what to do to
Every single day. And
bit of cheese on it. It's pretty benign looking.
that's-
Goes
that's
into your
good,
mouth,
thank you.
into the stomach, just freezes for a second. So there's the stomach digesting the food. There's the liver, which has to take all the nutrients and decide what to do with it, including making sugar out of it. Gallbladder's the green stuff, and this organ right here, that yellowish thing, that's the hero today. That's called the pancreas. Let's run this forward. The food goes through the stomach, into the small bowel, the bile, the green stuff, and the yellow stuff from the pancreas, they mix. And there's the pancreas there doing its best to keep up. The food is being washed like you wash soap off, some grease, and the molecules of glucose or sugar get absorbed into the body. Now, let's cut into the bloodstream. The sugar now is traveling around, and these little particles here are insulin. And
So the
these
yellow
insulin
is the
particles are being
insulin?
released from the pancreas. And what the pancreas is trying to do, freeze this for a second, is to take the sugar, these blue dots coming in are sugar molecules. And the insulin is saying, come to me, like a funnel. It's allowing the sugar to go past the bloodstream into the tissues. Goes to our brain. Our brain can only use sugar to think. Makes us think better. Goes to our muscles so we can exercise, right? But it does other things too.
now is sugar a substitute for the word carbohydrate? Because I know our brain needs carbohydrate to think.
Exactly. Simple carbohydrates are sugars.
Okay.
Complex carbohydrates are sugars with some kind of fiber attached to them.
Okay,
Real
gotcha.
foods.
Got
okay?
that.
Now, what happens, run this forward, if you have too much sugar going in? We store it in our belly. That's how our ancestors survived. But that belly fat, the omentum, gets ponderously large. And as it does that, it poisons the insulin so it no longer can work and the sugar cannot get out of the bloodstream. That's a problem because in the heart, the blood vessels are very delicate. There's a Teflon lining, and the sugar, like pieces of glass shards, scrape at it. And you see that little hole that's starting to make on the inside of the artery? As our body scars in an attempt to heal, it's a fragile repair. It breaks. It ruptures. Now you have an open surface that's sore, Oprah. And you have a cut anywhere, you form a scab on it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing in the body. You form a scab in the artery. It gets larger and larger, and kaboom! Right there, you saw the leading cause of death in diabetics. Because a diabetic will most likely die from a heart attack, from that very reason. Oprah.
And this is why, they say heart attack and stroke is still the leading cause of death in America. However, it's not usually caused due to heart issues. It's usually caused due to diabetes, because every time, and this is why I say you do not want to ignore those blood sugar numbers. You don't want to not manage your diabetes, because every time your blood sugar is high, it is like taking shards of glass, and it is not only just affecting the arterial system, it is also scraping all of your organs and your tissues. And this is why you get neuropathy, blindness, kidney failure, and very hardening of the arteries. So by that process continually happening over and over again, the arterial system becomes very brittle. You can think of it almost like a straw. It's very rigid. And so that is why the heart attacks and strokes happen so easily. Okay? So know your numbers and manage the sugar. Okay? Diabetes remains the 7th leading cause of death in the United States. According to a study published online in JAMA today, nearly 50% of adults living in the U.S. have diabetes or pre-diabetic. Now that is scary. I mean, you think of it, 50% of the population having diabetes or pre-diabetes. And a lot of you, sitting here could have diabetes and don't even know it. Of the 29.1 million adults with diabetes, 23.1 were diagnosed, were diagnosed, and 8.1 million were undiagnosed. So as you can see, there's a lot of us walking around. Sometimes you say, oh, I don't feel good today, I'm a little sluggish. We never know. You always want to find out why you're feeling the way you are. Don't just ignore it, okay? There are 1 million Americans diagnosed with diabetes every year. Prevention. As I was saying, know your numbers. Does anyone know here what their blood sugar might run on an average? Okay. 145. Was that a fasting reading? You just had it randomly taken. Okay. Does anyone here know? You had just eaten. Okay, so that was fine for just eating. Does anyone here know what a normal blood sugar level is? You said 80 to 150, 70 to 120. Very good, you got it. What you're going to find, and this is very sad, unfortunately, your labs are going to vary according to the area or regions that you live. You're going to find in Black communities or where there's a lot of Latinos and Black people, they actually raise the levels. Instead of encouraging one to get the proper levels, they raise them. And that's why we're hearing 150 and 120. But the true level is 60 to 99, okay? So a good blood sugar level should be, and keep in mind this is a fasting level, should be 60 to 99, okay? So that's why it's important to know your numbers. Now, let's just say, like she said, she took her blood sugar just kind of randomly, but she had eaten and got a reading. It is a good idea, everyone here who gets a physical, most of the time they will take a level, what's called an A1C level. Does anyone here know what that means? No, okay. Yes, dear. Yes, your average. So it's a 3-month projection of what your blood sugar is running. So the next time you have your physical, or if you haven't had one in a while, or you have not had blood work taken in a while, definitely talk to your doctor about getting an A1C level done, okay? Because you want to know what your average is. Because if that's high, you know that now you are creeping into a pre-diabetic phase. Okay, so you want it, and labs do vary. Usually it will go sometimes to 5.0 to maybe 6, but they vary by, a couple points in different labs. The next thing is, yes. Well, if your doctor's telling you you're pre-diabetic, that means you are heading to full-blown diabetes. And if you don't make the necessary changes now, your next visit, he'll probably be telling you that you are diabetic, and then you're going to be greeted with some pills and some needles and things like that, the unpleasant side of diabetes. So yes, if your doctor tells you that, take it very seriously. You know, definitely find guidance as to what you need to do dietary to make those changes, because don't always expect your doctor to tell you, okay, Mr. Jones, I want you to go home, I want you to get off the white bread, I want you to add more fiber into your diet, I want you to exercise more. He's basically going to tell you, we're going to watch this, Mr. Jones, we'll check you again in 3 months and we'll see where you're at. And this could go on and on and on until then you qualify for a medication, okay? And that's you don't want to do, where that window of time that, you know, he's giving you, you can be reversing that, and that's the important thing. Okay, did someone else have a question? Did I see another hand? Okay, so the other thing that you want to keep an eye on when you're getting a routine checkup is to know what your lipid levels are. Now that could mean your triglycerides, your cholesterol, your LDL. You want to know what those are because, again, if you're pre-diabetes or your blood sugar levels are starting to creep up, that's going to affect those lipid levels, okay? Some of us, how many here love sweets? Oh, boy. Okay. So, as you can see, a lot of us are sweet junkies, sugar junkies, you know. Some of us probably a little worse than others. How many here like to drink a nice glass of fruit juice? How many here like sodas? Okay. So keep in mind, when you're drinking, let's just take an average cup of grape juice or orange juice. You're looking at anywhere from 50 to 60 grams of sugar, okay? And that's scary because that is more sugar than you should have in one meal. And keep in mind, that's an 8-ounce glass, and most of us can almost double that. And a lot of people think it's healthy, it's fruit juice, you know. And this is why, even government-wise, as they're trying to get our young generation off of these sweet, sugary drinks, they're even warning against the use of fruit juices, okay? And that's why it scares me when I see babies and young children with bottles of juice and these artificial drinks, and sometimes, even to my just dismay, I almost grabbed my chest because sometimes I see soda in those bottles, and it is scary that you have toddlers and babies drinking soda, okay? Yes? Not much. So if you juice it yourself, you're going to get some fiber, a little pulp in there, although some people like to strain that out too. But it's still a concentrated amount. Whereas if you were to eat the orange itself, it's perfectly packaged with the fiber, the enzymes, and the things that it needs to digest itself and not overwhelm the pancreas. So you always want to, just because in a glass of orange juice you can probably almost get, depending on how juicy the orange is, you know, you may not, you might be having 6 or 7 oranges. Okay, so that's an excess. All right. And then the next thing is know the symptoms, okay? And we're going to go through those. Blurry vision, especially if you're driving at night and you start finding it a little bit hard to drive because of the lights and everything looks blurry, or if even during the daytime you're getting blurry vision. Weight loss. So some people will just all of a sudden randomly experience sudden weight loss. And you don't want to say, and for some people they're like, oh great, I'm losing weight. You know, definitely if it's kind of rapid, you want to check into what your numbers are so that you make sure it's a healthy weight loss. Frequent urination, feeling sweaty, loss of sex drive, slow healing, tingling and numbness, increased thirst, low energy, and tired all the time. And I know I don't want to panic everybody because a lot of us now, we live unfortunately very tired, but if it's something that you're constantly dealing with, definitely investigate if this could be a causative factor. Dry, itchy skin, reoccurring infections, and yeast infections, okay? So these are things that you want to pay attention to if you're experiencing, to make sure that these are signs of being pre-diabetic, and definitely get it checked and start dealing with it, okay? Remember, our bodies are governed by fixed laws, okay? Now, if you, let's just say you buy a Chevy vehicle, right? And you want to know how that vehicle runs. Are you going to get the manual for a Chevy vehicle or a Ford? Because the Ford manual is not going to help you with your Chevy vehicle. So it is important to know and be aware of the laws that govern our bodies, and know that there are laws that govern our bodies. Many have expected that God would keep them from sickness merely because they have asked him to do so. But God did not regard their prayers, because their faith was not made perfect by works. Does everyone get that? So some of us pray because we want God to just take something away. But what this is saying, that we have to do our part as well. God will not work a miracle to keep those from sickness who have no care for themselves, but are continually violating the laws of health and make no efforts to prevent disease. So we cannot continue to do things to our body that we know are harmful and expect to be healthy, okay? Many of us know about the 8 laws of health. Who here have heard about the 8 laws of health? Okay, very good. So we have a few here that know about the 8 laws of health. So we're going to go through each law of health, okay? So you can see that there are laws that govern our beings. And just know that when I go through the laws, there are so many different things that each law provides for us. But we're going to be just hitting a few points, okay? The first one is sunshine. Then we have temperance, air, rest, trust in divine power, nutrition, exercise, and water, okay? And if we line these up, these all go in the order of start new, okay? So if you go to the doctors and get that pre-diabetic diagnosis, start on these start new, okay, laws, and that's going to help to reverse where you are. The first one we're going to look at is sunshine. Sunshine provides a good source of vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is, even though we're calling it a vitamin, is actually a hormone, and that actually prevents diabetes and hypertension, okay? And it's also especially beneficial for autoimmune diseases. So when there's a lack of vitamin D in the body, it causes a lot of inflammation. So that's something with both diabetics and people suffering from autoimmune diseases need to have checked. And unfortunately, in this generation that we live in, most people are low in vitamin D, and we're going to discuss a little bit further in as to why. The sunshine provides a good natural source of serotonin. Does anyone know what serotonin is? No, serotonin is our happy hormone. So how many of us in the morning wake up and we're like, yes, without the cup of coffee, we're like, yes, we're ready to start the day? Boy, I don't see a lot of hands. So a lot of us are looking for that cup of coffee because we're just barely crawling and dragging ourselves out of bed. And that's because your body is low in serotonin. And when we cover the law of sleep, you need melatonin to go to sleep. So if you're not sleeping, which a lot of us are not, because we're either not tired because we've been going and going all day, and now we're trying to put the brakes on and it's just not happening fast enough, or we are on social media, okay, or we're watching the television. Turn it all off, go to sleep, get some rest so your body can produce that melatonin. So this way in the morning, you have your happy hormone of serotonin, okay? And keep in mind, when you're happy, you make what? Good or better decisions, okay, for yourself. When you're grumpy and, you just don't care anymore, you just start grabbing for this or that or not doing a lot of the good things that we once were doing. The next law that we're going to look at is temperance. Not overdoing of the good or the bad. So a lot of people look at temperance and they think, okay, I just don't want to do the bad things. However, it's important that, some people find, okay, water's good for me, so I'm going to drink 1.5 gallons. That's not healthy. You want moderation and temperance in all that you're doing, okay? Abstaining from that which is bad and dangerous to our health. So again, if you know that eating a donut is not going to be healthy for you, or something else that you like, and you might say, oh, it's not that bad, it's just kind of in the middle there, it's just something I do every now and then. No, it's still going to affect you, okay? So temperance is another very, very important law. Then we have air. Now, sadly, fresh air is so important, good quality air, but unfortunately in this generation that we live in, it's not that easy to get, so I would encourage you all maybe one day a week to find a country road to go drive to and take a nice walk and do some deep breathing. But deep breathing is important as well, because most of us are just shallow breathing, and we have all this dead oxygen at the base of our lungs that doesn't get moved very often. So deep breathing is very, very important. And like I said, a nice ride in the country. Me being, as I say, a country bumpkin, when I come to the city, I feel like I stop breathing. I breathe just enough to survive. And you can notice, like as I start heading closer to home, the air, you can feel the difference. Yes, so that's good air. Then we have rest. And we were just talking about rest and what the lack of sleep doesn't cause our bodies to provide. But rest is important for regeneration and rejuvenation of the body. So we actually have sets of cells in our body that work during the day, and we have sets of cells that work during the night. We also have organs that repair during the night versus during the day, such as the liver. The liver is a highly important organ. It does over 500 jobs in the body, so it is not an organ that you really want to abuse. And so that organ, again, repairs itself in the evening, so it is very important that you get your sleep, okay? Rest is also important for the adrenals. Why? Because the adrenals repair and rejuvenate at night. And adrenal exhaustion is something so many people are suffering from, okay? So rest is highly important. And when you exhaust your body to a point when you're running on, as Mrs. Dawson was talking about this morning, low nerve energy, that brownout feeling, body cannot heal and rejuvenate and regenerate in that state. So it's highly important that we get our rest, okay? Trust in divine power and nutrition. Remember, when we are weak and our faith is low, we have a God standing by with empowerment. All we have to do is ask for it, okay? Oftentimes we try on our own power to abstain from things that we should not do, but we have to understand, we have to learn in this hectic world that we live in and all of the tragedies and stress that we face and see every day, we have to trust in that divine power. When we are struggling, when our struggles are real, remember we do have a Savior with outstretched hands, ready and able to help. We just, again, have to ask, okay? Then we're going to cover nutrition. We're going to get into nutrition a little bit more deeper further on. But remember, we are what we eat. So you don't want to be eating a cheap, crappy diet, excuse my language. Okay, you want to be eating as if you were a queen and a princess. Don't feed yourself foods that you wouldn't give to your best of guests, okay? Don't expect health if you are eating the standard American diet, okay? It is very refined, highly processed, and I always say it's not really food. It is food-like substances. It is so refined that is, again, you read those labels, you don't even understand what all of it means, okay? So you want to be eating whole foods. Eat a diet that will encourage health and healing, okay? Exercise. So that is another very highly important one. And unfortunately, a lot of us in this day and age, again, because of the lifestyles we live and the rat race that we're trying to keep up with, exercise often gets put aside, okay? But perfect health depends upon perfect circulation of the blood. Exercise is essential for good circulation. It gets that cardiopulmonary going so that when you try to run somewhere quick, you're not, okay? So that's important. You want those organs to be toned. When working out, your body becomes more sensitive to the insulin molecule, okay, because you're working those muscles. So that's another way for diabetic control. Then we have water. Our bodies are 70 to 80% water. Now, let me ask you, a lot of us now measure water by these bottles. How many of us drink more than 3 of these a day? How about more than 5? Okay, so you should, and it goes according to your body weight, because a lot of people hear the 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. Keep in mind that is only if you are under 125 pounds. And so if you are over that, you want to calculate your body weight for your water intake and make sure you're getting in the proper amount of water, okay? Because especially in this generation, we live in a very toxic. There's nothing to move this stuff out of the system. Also, a lot of us complain of constipation, not moving our bowels. Well, how can they move when they're just stuck? They're so dry, they cannot even work themselves through the alimentary canal. So water is very crucial. A lot of people call me and they say, you know, what can I do for my constipation? And I say, well, how much water are you drinking? And again, well, I drink 1 or 2 of those bottles. And I'm like, that's just not enough. You're drying, especially when you think of the lungs. The lungs is a very paper-like membrane. I don't know if any of you have seen a real animation of how the lungs move. I find it so fascinating because it's such a delicate organ. I always think of it like a rose. You know, you get roses, and when you first get them, they're nice and pretty and beautiful, and then they start to die, and they get crispy. I often think of that's how the lungs must feel when we're not drinking water, okay? And that's why when I do the screenings, when I'm looking at the lungs, most people's lungs are affected. And main cause is usually because they're not drinking the water, okay? So water is crucial, especially for our brains. Your brain is 80% water. How many of us are walking around talking about, oh, my memory? I just can't remember. I went into the room, and I mean, we get quite a bit of exercise sometimes just going back and forth, trying to figure out what we're trying to find, okay? We lose stuff all the time. Drink some water. Start with that. Then after you drink the water and it doesn't improve after a period of time, then you can investigate other factors. But start with the water. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I show you some clips of some of the blood that I've taken, that congestion also is what we see in people with hypertension. And usually, again, it's lack of water. Yes, because the blood is sticky, it's gooey, and the heart has to work harder to move it through the system. So yes, water. Also, too, a lot of people experience hypertension for fluid issues. Oftentimes, it's because we are not drinking the water, because the body goes into starvation mode, and the little bit of water, or 1 little bottle we're drinking a day, is going to hold on to that like it's in a desert. Drink the water, and not in excess, and drink it properly, but in that fluid will start being able to move. Yes? Correct. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yes, and that's why I say you can get away with the 8 to 10 if you're under 125 pounds, but then some of us are really small, and you might need to do that weight to water ratio, okay? Water is needed for cellular health. And when I show you some of those clips again later, you're going to see if there's not enough water intake, the cells, again, the blood becomes gooey and sticky, and again, it's going to make issues with circulation. Now, how many of us like water cold? Out the fridge with a couple ice cubes? Okay, so that is the wrong way to drink water, okay? You want to make sure that you're drinking your water room temperature, because otherwise the body has to hold on to it until it warms it up so it can use it. So that means you're going to feel bloated, and that's why I can't drink all that water. I feel bloated. I don't want to move around. Yeah, because your body's trying to warm it up so it can utilize it. Also keep in mind, your body can only utilize 8 ounces of water within a half-hour period of time. 8 ounces, so that's about half of this bottle. And a lot of us will take this bottle and guzzle it down and say, oh, I drank my water. But that means you're going to be living in the bathroom because it's going to utilize the 8 ounces and you're going to quickly pee off the rest. So some people say, well, with my job, I can't drink all that water because I don't have time to be living in the bathroom. If you drink it properly, you're going to find that's going to be a lot better. Yes, dear. Exactly. Sometimes when our bodies are hungry, our bodies are actually calling for water, not food, okay? So that's something, again, to keep in mind. Yes? Absolutely not. So if you... So, can we repeat that question? Yes, and that is very unfortunate for many reasons. One being, when you add something to water, now it turns it from being able to move through the system and utilize for purifying the body to now it has to be digested. Okay, and that's even the same thing. You want to be careful, and I know it's nice because a lot of us like to put the limes and the lemons and the fruit in our water, but you know that could be causing your body to have to digest it, so you want to be careful about that. The other downside of those packets is the sugars in them, okay? Those artificial sweeteners, as Mrs. Dawson was talking about gut health last night, destroys 50% of that good bacteria in your alimentary canal. So those artificial sweeteners are a no-no, okay? All righty. You're welcome. Yes? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and a lot of it is, you know, I'm not going to say all alkaline water or some of these waters are bad for you, but a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to, you know, they pay top dollar for these bottles of alkaline water, or they pay top dollar for these systems of to alkaline their water. Yet I have looked at the blood of a lot of those people, and sometimes their blood is the most acidic, okay? Doesn't mean that it's not helping at all. They could be worse off, okay? But having an alkaline body is not just about drinking alkaline water. It's about making sure you're having good water intake, proper bowel habits, eating a good ratio of your acid and alkaline foods, emotional health. There's so many different factors. So as long as you're drinking a good, pure water, which you do have to really look at now, because you look at a lot of these bottles, which you think are all spring water, and most of it is just purified, okay? So make sure you're actually drinking spring water, okay? All righty, so we're going to take one more question, then we're going to move on. Yes, dear, in the back. Yes, you can, yes. And by doing that, you wash out your electrolytes, and then you're going to have no energy, and, you know, so that's why some people are like, oh, you just drink too much water. That's not healthy for you. It's all about balance and knowing how much water you should have for your size. Yes, okay? I'm sorry, yes. Okay. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, and I would say if you're going to have that, maybe do it once in the morning or, you know, but not all through the day. It still has to be digested. It does digest quicker than a meal, but it still has to be digested, so it's not doing that purification that just pure water would need to do. Yes. Correct, yes. I mean, you can have water like that, like when you wake up in the morning. Lemon water is excellent. Or you could put the limes and the ginger and all of that in the morning, yes. Yeah. Exactly, yes. Yeah, just do it in 1 or 2 intervals during the day. Yes, yes. Yes, a lot of water has added sodium to it. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at some other, so those are 8 laws. I didn't realize we got through those so quickly. Yes. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct, about that, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's a 20 ounce, but these are normally around 16 in a couple ounces, yeah. So some are larger than other. Correct, it's the amount that's in the bottle. Yes, absolutely. So now we're going to cover some diabetic causative factors, okay? So why would I have developed diabetes? Why am I being told that I am pre-diabetic? Or why am I experiencing some of these diabetic symptoms? So for one, is diet, too many sugars, fats, and carbs. Lack of exercise, we touched on that. Eating late at night. Overworking, exhaustion, and lack of sleep, which we also talked about some. Then we have gut health, which Mrs. Dawson touched on last night, and I'm going to touch on a little bit more, not in depth. Belly fat. So belly fat has you create a lot of momentum, which causes insulin resistance and smoking. Okay, these are all some of the main causative factors as to why a person could be diabetic or developing diabetes or putting themselves at risk for becoming one, okay? So you don't want to do these things and just say, oh, I'll stop when I become symptomatic, okay? Diet, not eating enough raw foods, too much cooked foods. Meat eating, dairy, too many sugars in the diet, too many carbohydrates in the diet, too many fats, especially animal-based fats, okay? Just one more click should play it. No. Okay, any more questions while we're working on the sound? Yes, in the back?
My name's Michael.
Okay. Well, while he's backing that up, you can go ahead.
My name's Michael. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. 8 years ago, and unfortunately, I was diagnosed. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Just like 8 years ago, I had to.
Well, it's a slower process. It's like I say, think of it this way. If you're washing dishes, would you want to wash dishes in diluted juice or pure water? So that's how just a quick, easy way to look at it, okay? So pure water is going to be more effective in that process rather than water or juice that's even diluted or a little bit of something added to it, okay? One more question over here. Okay. Warm it up. Yeah. No, no, absolutely not. No. Yeah. Okay. We're ready.
If I could deliver one message to the researchers who are looking for the cause of diabetes and the cause of clogged arteries and the cause of high blood pressure and the cause of obesity, I would tell them the answer's in 3 words. It's the food. It's what Americans are eating.
Today, with 2/3 of Americans being overweight, clearly there's a food issue. In the next 25 years, 1 out of every 3 Americans will have diabetes.
My name's Michael Abdallah. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And unfortunately, I was diagnosed about 10 years ago with diabetes. And 8 years ago, I had 2 stents put in. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. You're just like out of options, and you don't know what to do. You're taking medicine. You listen to this doctor, and the cardiologist says take this, and the endocrinologist says take that. Then your general practitioner doctor says you don't know what's going on here. And it's a real challenging thing, and it's something that you don't want to get it. You just don't want to get it.
So like you said, you don't want to get it, okay? Did that just stop,
or? I could deliver one message to the researchers who are looking for the cause of diabetes. If I could deliver one message to the researchers who are looking for the cause of diabetes, I would tell them the answer's in 3 words. It's the food. It's what Americans are eating.
So what they're basically saying in this clip that, you know, as we were talking earlier about how government has put together a special task force to try to figure out how do we control diabetes, because as they know, it is tanking the medical insurance companies, and pretty soon, you know, they have no idea how to deal with this. When it's not, sometimes I just will, like, let me just please go visit you guys and have a little chat, you know, because it's not that difficult. It is about what we're doing, what we're being fed, and diet, okay? And so dietary stuff is very, very important in ascertaining.
Today.
Did the other tape finish playing? There should have been more to that. Basically, it was talking about animal fats, okay, and what animal fats do to the cells. So all excess fat is not good, okay, because fat converts into sugars. Did anyone know that? Okay, so we're not just looking at the simple sugars that we're eating or the carbohydrates that we're eating, but now we're also looking at how much fats we're eating, because those break down into sugars as well. Now, when you are eating animal fats, that is even a whole nother danger zone, because instead of the body being able to process those fats, what happens is it coats the cells. Now, those cells need to be able to take in that insulin molecule to be used for energy and burned up. But when we are excessively eating these animal proteins, that doesn't happen. And so that again is why people who are eating non-plant-based proteins have higher lipid levels, and cholesterol levels, and their blood sugar is harder to manage, okay? Now, in the clip that I was gonna, I don't know if we'll get it to play, but one of the things when talking about animal proteins is the doctor was explaining how sugar and carbohydrates have absolutely nothing to do with diabetes. How many here agree with that? That sugar and fats have nothing to do with, sugar and carbohydrates have nothing to do with diabetes. You agree? Yes. You agree. Who disagrees? Okay, yes. You agree. All right. So, what I wanted to explain after watching that is, okay, so yes, animal proteins, we know, lace the cells with the fat, causing those molecules not to be able to be utilized. However, when you are eating too many carbohydrates, too many sugars, that same reaction can happen. So let's just say you had a nice big glass of grape juice, okay? So it was about 2 cups. So that's going to give you literally, instead of just 54 grams of carbs per that glass of juice, it's going to give you 108, okay? That enters the bloodstream. The body then, or let's just say you had a huge plate of rice and beans, okay? Which maybe that's a little bit more, I know a lot of us like our rice and beans or potatoes or things like that. What happens is when that breaks down, and we're not talking about animal fats, when that breaks down and hits the blood system, the body has a similar reaction, meaning the pancreas kicks in to produce as much insulin as it can to control this sugar overload. The liver then kicks in to take, again, as much of that sugar and converts it to fat and stores it, hoping that we will use it later and burn it off for energy. However, this is a process that unfortunately we do in a cycle. We constantly are reaching for the sweets or drinking too many sweet sugary drinks. And so what happens is you get a very fatty liver. How many of us have heard about a fatty liver? Yes, okay. And a lot of us have it and we're like, well, I don't eat a lot of fats or I don't eat a lot of fried foods. And that's because we are creating this action in the body. So yes, animal fats play a huge role, but also too high of a consumption of carbohydrates and sugars creates the same scenario in the body. So it's all about serving sizes, and a lot of us, when it comes to carbohydrates, that's devastating news, especially when we talk about rice, okay? A serving of rice is a half a cup. Now, I've heard some of my clients say, well, why even bother to eat the rice? Why just tease myself with a half a cup of rice when a lot of us, especially from the islands, or, we like not only just the rice, but we want the rice and the beans. So now you have double carbs, okay? And so when that meal hits the blood system, the body is having a crisis or is in a state of crisis. How many of you, after eating a meal like that, you sit down and you're just dozing? Because a lot of us just came from eating, right? How many here just kind of finished eating and came? Okay, I see a lot of nodding heads tonight. Not saying that you can't be tired, it has been a long day, okay? But we want to sometimes, if we're getting that reaction of just falling asleep, and that's why for, a lot of us black folks, we call it, excuse my language, but niggeritis as we know it, because we eat and we want to crawl in bed, okay? Because we are so tired, we can barely stay awake. And if you don't get to the bed, you might even just fall out of the chair, okay? Because that sugar, the body is just numbed right then. Your body's in a state of crisis. Yes? Yes. Exactly. As we like to call it at the mission, and my mom likes to call it, is you need to go for a digestion walk. Even if you don't have a half hour, do something, 10, 15 minutes, just make it a little brisker. But it's important that after you eat, you do not become sedentary, okay? Because that's not good. There's different clips, but it should have been on the first one. Okay, so again, digestion walks after your meal. Even if you have to go outside and just do a couple jumping jacks or running place, something is better than nothing. Yes, dear? Okay, so that's a good question. Her question is, a lot of people have heard it's not good to exercise after you eat. How many here have heard of that? Yes, so what they're talking about is that's not the time to go to the gym and be on there running a half a mile or miles or doing heavy weightlifting. So we're talking about heavy exercise. But a quick, a digestion walk, that's going to be fine, okay? But vigorous exercise, because sometimes what happens is that robs the blood away from the digestive system and you become nauseous. And you're doing this workout and then all of a sudden, it's not so pretty. Okay. So, but quick digestion walk is what we want. All right. Any other questions before? Yes. As far as eating them? Okay. Yes, so smoothies you have to be careful with because smoothies, it's very easily, you can pack a lot of sweets. You know, like sometimes my clients will tell me, oh, I do smoothies every morning, and I'm like, great, they're doing something healthy. And I'm like, so what do you put in your smoothie? Oh, I put some strawberries, and then I put some bananas, and I put a couple dates in there for the sweetener, and I put a couple blueberries, and I'm sitting there like, okay, good effort, but let's back up on the sweetness, okay? Because you're creating the same situation as if you were drinking juices. Mm-hmm. A beet? Yes. And celery. So, although those are good things for you to have, you have two major high carbohydrates and high glycemic foods. So beets are extremely high in sugars, and so are bananas. And they're both also very high glycemic foods, meaning they hit the blood system very fast. Plus the other issue is you're mixing fruit and vegetable, okay? So you want to look at, you know, oftentimes, you know, when we do these smoothies, we want them to taste really good, but they're supposed to be healthy for us so that, and it doesn't mean that you can't make a decent tasting smoothie. You just have to look at your combinations and watch your, because then oftentimes, after putting all of those fruit juices, fruits in there, then we put juice in there on top of that. One of my clients says, oh, and then I put a scoop of ice cream. And I'm like, okay, now we just totally blew it, okay? So that's a no-no, okay? So we want to watch that, as well as like other, you know, the sugars. So that's why it's important to watch the fats and to watch the animal proteins, okay? If we back this up just a little bit, it will be where I need it, okay? We'll get one of our other slides as we go on. Yes. A little bit further. A little further. Okay. This is good. Yeah, so this is going to be where he's talking about the scar tissue that happens, and this is how the heart attack happens. But I want it just after that, so we'll keep it where it is now. A little repetition won't hurt, okay? Yes.
I think I may have missed something that you said, because to Brother Arnold's question, you seems like a caution about the fruits and the mixing fruits and vegetables.
Correct.
Because I've done smoothies like that with, say, kale, and then you may add fruits, and you know there are a lot of books about cleansing smoothies and all this kind of stuff, and that's usually what's entailed.
Yeah, so smoothies are good. However, you do have to be careful about mixing fruits and vegetables. So we have 3 categories, and we're going to just do this very briefly because that's almost a whole nother lecture. But you have fruits, you have vegetables, and then you have fruit vegetables. Some of your fruit vegetables are things like pineapples, kiwi, papaya, these oranges, grapefruit, your citrus fruits. That is because they are very, very high in enzymes. Also things like tomatoes are fruit vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, zucchini. Those are all things that can be eaten with both fruits and vegetables. Now there are many, many food combining charts out there. It can get extremely confusing. The one that I stick to and adhere to is what comes from the Bible, okay? Because that just eliminates the confusion. Okay, so that's why I say you have to be careful. So for instance, if you do want a smoothie that has kale in it, you might try to use some pineapple chunks or things like that, or some kiwi and some mango or papaya. Not all that together because now we're up in the sugar load, but things that will combine well. Yes. I can share. I have the chart. Okay. Good. The fruits and vegetables that you can. Yes. So we'll try to make that chart available for you, okay? Yes. So this is kind of going back to when we were talking about the dangers of having high sugar levels that are unmanaged and how it creates that scraping of the organs and the vessels.
In the heart. The blood vessels are very delicate. There's a Teflon lining, and the sugar, like pieces of glass shards, scrape at it, and you see that little hole that's starting to make on the inside of the artery? As our body scars in an attempt to heal, it's a fragile repair. It breaks. It ruptures. Now you have an open surface that's sore, Oprah. And you have a cut anywhere, you form a scab on it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing in the body. You form a scab in the artery, it gets larger and larger, and kaboom! Right there, you saw the leading cause of death in diabetics. Because a diabetic will most likely die from a heart attack. From that very reason. Over 1/4 of the patients that I operated on every day have diabetes.
Wow.
1/4.
So, okay, just to summarize, when you have too much sugar and your body isn't processing the sugar, it's like little crystals, it's like shards in the body, right? It's like pieces of glass. Okay, that's what happens in the body when you have too much sugar.
Right, and these little glass shards, imagine this is the lining of my artery, which we have everywhere in our body. It's scraping at it. It's digging at it. It's cutting it.
That's what too much sugar does in the body.
Exactly. And we have to scar the cuts. We have to heal them. The scarring process is the hardening of the arteries.
So it's scarring inside the body.
In all of our tissues.
In all of our tissues.
Every one of them.
Okay.
And that's a problem because that influences all of our organs. So, for example, what happens when it scars our kidneys?
You have kidney failure.
You have kidney failure. So here's a picture of a normal kidney on the left.
Yeah.
Beautiful, plump, robust.
Yeah.
Look at the kidney on the right. It's shrunken. It's shriveled. It's been killed.
That's a diabetic kidney.
Diabetic kidney.
Okay.
What happens in the eyes? In the eyes, the blood vessels are very fragile. Look at the left eye. Normal eye, by the way, is a window into the soul of our bodies.
Right.
It's our brain we're looking at.
Okay.
The normal eye on the left there has normal pink tissue. It gives us a beautiful reflection of the brain. Look on the right side, what happens during diabetes. Those fragile little vessels crack. A little tiny crack in a blood vessel, and the blood accumulates. See the dark areas? That's a Charlie horse of the eye. But when that happens in your eye, you don't just get a little discomfort. Imagine you're looking at two kids playing in the playground. Right? You've got a picture of them right there.
Okay.
You've got diabetic changes. This is what it looks like.
Can you imagine that?
That's your view of the world. Now try to focus on that. So it's not just a little bit of sugar.
Not just a little bit of sugar. So many people think that if you're diagnosed with diabetes, that you just take a little insulin. I know I have members of my family who have to shoot insulin every day, and you'll be fine.
Well, at the end of the day, the amount of insulin you've got to take depends on how bad your diabetes is.
Yeah.
But I don't want you just to think about diabetes. I want you to feel diabetes. So I took one of your film crews with me to New York Presbyterian Hospital, and we actually visited Lorene.
Okay.
She's a woman who is on insulin.
Okay.
She's had diabetes for much of her life. I want you to hear her story.
Okay.
And this is very sobering, and this is what we want to think
How
about
are you?
when we're not managing.
It's a real pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, too.
Thanks for that.
Diabetes so ravaged Lorraine's kidneys. At age 34, she already needed a transplant. Just 7 years later, diabetes destroyed that kidney too. 3 days a week, it takes
You want
this
to look at
dialysis
this screen
machine
in the
3
back. They use
hours
the fuzzy
to clean
clip.
her
It
blood.
might be a little clearer
Without
for
it,
you.
she would die. Now at 44, diabetes has taken an even greater toll on Lorraine's entire body.
Can I look at your legs?
I ended up with lesions on my feet, and I've now lost half of my leg on the left side, and they just took half my foot 2 weeks ago.
I'm going to ask you a delicate question, but there are a lot of folks who say, hey, I just have a little bit of sugar. You know, I have a little diabetes, and I'll take care of it. What do you have to say to them?
And try and take care of yourself early, because I didn't when I was young. I ate lots of regular sugared soda and regular cake, and then I also would say, well, I'll take a little bit of insulin to, compensate for it. I think that would be okay, which it wasn't. And this is what happens.
Okay. So I know that was a little gruesome and hard for a lot of you to watch, but that's the sobering fact of not managing your diabetes. So when you're dealing with things like neuropathy, you know this is where you're headed. When your sugars are high and you're not controlling them, you know that you're headed for this scenario, okay? Can we go back to the PowerPoint, the slideshow? Thank you. Yes, dear.
Spoke a lot about diet and intake. How does the immune system work with diabetes?
Yes, so the immune system is very important, but however, when the sugar levels are high, keep in mind, sugar paralyzes the immune system for up to 4 hours. So when we are constantly loading or constantly not managing our sugar, we are basically paralyzing our immune system, and that is why a lot of diabetics have that slow wound healing, because there's no immunity to help for healing. So it affects greatly, yes. Did that answer your question? Did it answer it fully? Because I can... Okay, all righty. Yes. Well, smoking restricts the circulation, and so eventually you get a lot of cell death. And when, you know, our bodies are a living being, we're made up from cells. And so when you start restricting that circulation and causing hardening of the arterial system, yes, okay, it affects the cells and the beta within the cell. Yes, in the back.
Smoking, doesn't that take away the oxygen out of your blood too?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yes. Which non-oxygenated cells are not living, repairing cells, okay?
Can you explain the different types of diabetes that people talk about? Like,
we are going to cover that briefly if I could get back to my slideshow. Yes, but I guess while we're waiting for that, so yes, there are several types of diabetes, and there's still some in the process of being named. So as you know, you have type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune type diabetes. Now, a lot of that is from the consumption of a lot of these glycosates and all of these pesticides and things that are in our bodies from poor gut health, especially if the mother has poor gut health during pregnancy. She is developing a child that has, you know, the same issue. And so they're born with type 1 diabetes. Then we have the most common form, which is type 2 diabetes, which most of us are fairly familiar with. Then there's also a newer diabetes out now called LADA, which means latent adult diabetes in adults, okay? And that, again, is an autoimmune, so that's going to depend on, you're going to need to have gut health, okay? Which I was hoping to get some of my slides so I can go over that with you. And then there's, you know, the juvenile and type 1 are very similar. And then there are also, because now we have a lot of children being diagnosed with diabetes, and it's not type 1. So now they're trying to come up with a new name for this type of diabetes that children are developing. Okay? So, yes. Type 1, yes, it's autoimmune. However, they just say it's autoimmune, but now how do you address the autoimmune, and that is through gut health. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. So any other questions while we get the computer rebooted? So yes.
2 points I wanted to make. The first one is, I actually like that video that you showed with Dr. Oz and the lady who was talking about her experience, because I don't know if you've heard, but sometimes I think because that kind of gives a clear, you know, explanation of what happens with diabetes, because sometimes you may hear somebody say they want to have the ice cream and the cake and they'll eat it, but I'll take more insulin.
Exactly.
And that doesn't really make sense. But seeing something like this, you know, will, to me, will clarify.
And she was a nurse. And she was a nurse, so she knew, you know, what should be, you know. But again, you have those cravings and you're just like, I'll have it today and then I'll, you know, just a little bit more insulin. Or some of us are on the pill and, you know, that's not covering it. You can't take an extra pill. So you're just running, you know, you have that high sugar, so now you're getting that glass effect in the body.
my second question was, this newer, which I've never heard about, this newer type of diabetes that does it have something to do with what's called like metabolic syndrome? Because, you know, you don't have the regular predisposing factors, but people as they get older, because of the lipids and all these other things that you talk about, they're developing diabetes, the weight around the middle, the high cholesterol, all these different things. So is that what's the cause?
No, that is actually not LADA diabetes. That is actually still a metabolic form. But that's usually, you see in a lot of people, especially women who have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also a metabolic condition. So oftentimes they will, as they call it, the progression of the disease, you will develop diabetes down the road. So that's even another one. Yes.
So I have a co-worker, and she would almost every day, she's diabetic, and almost every day she would have McDonald's or Wendy's, and she would supersize. And I said to her one day, doesn't that affect your diabetes? And she says, no. No. Is that true or not?
Well, you know, I would say for her, she's highly in a state of denial. And, you know, and that's unfortunately, you see that a lot in diabetics. You know, the foods that they're eating, and that's why you could see why it's so uncontrolled. Oftentimes, you know, most people can probably do without most of the medication that they're taking. But because of their diet, they're having to take tons of insulin. I mean, when I talk to people, and not only are they on insulin, but they're on the pill, and they're on several pills, that's a problem, you know, that needs to be addressed. But a lot of times the willpower of diabetics is just not there, and they make these excuses, you know, no, it's not going to harm. But, I mean, think about it. A supersized fry, you have a major carbohydrate that is a high glycemic carbohydrate. The sad part is most of these fries taken from or gotten from McDonald's or Burger King's is not even just the cut potato and fried. It's mashed up and tons of additives and things added to it. Then you fried it. So now you have the fat component for it. So now you have all the fats there that are now going to break down to sugars. You have the potato that's got to break down to sugars. And then we don't want to talk, granted, there's a bun involved and some meat, so now you have the plant-based animal fats, and let's not even talk about the bun. I mean, when you just start adding up those numbers, just those supersized fries alone is probably over or close to 100 grams of carbs. Then the bun is probably about anywhere from maybe 40 to 50, and we don't even want to talk about all the other breakdowns. So, you know, unfortunately, she is on a suicide mission and doesn't really realize it or is in denial about it. Yes. And she's probably getting a drink along with that, too. Oh, mercy. Yes, I had a hand over here first. Yes, exactly. Yes, we had a hand in the back.
Yeah, being diabetic, is your risk of getting cancer greater by being a diabetic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because your system is being, you know, it has so much sugars in it. Sugars fuel cancer cells. All of this stuff makes your body very acidic, and that's why hopefully we might get to show you a picture of what that does to the cells. But it creates a very acidic environment. As a lot of doctors say, no man can ever have cancer in a pH-balanced body, okay? And so if you're eating all these things and doing all these things, and eating just the food alone is very constipating. So not only do we have an acidic environment, but now we have an environment that's full of toxins. And both of those are fuel for cancer. Yeah. I think, yes.
What constitutes the difference between the type 1 and type 2? And with the insulin and the pill, what's the difference in how it helps?
So the difference between type 1 and type 2, as I had said, type 1 is autoimmune. So meaning that the beta in the cell, which produces the insulin, has basically been destroyed. okay? And that's why they tell you that you will be dependent upon insulin for a lifetime. Whereas type 2 is a metabolic issue and more dietary and control and things like that. Yes. Okay. Was there another question? Yes. Over here.
Look, let me just quickly say for T. There's some years ago now, maybe 10 years ago or more, there was a documentary done entitled Super Size Me. Seen it? She needs to see it.
Yes.
Morgan, what was Morgan's last name? He's a filmmaker. He went to McDonald's. He subsisted on, he went to his doctor. Morgan? Not Freeman.
Not Freeman, yeah. I know, now that's in my head and I can't
Morgan Spurlock? Morgan Spurlock? Morgan Spurlock? I don't remember his last name. Super Size Me. He blew up and all his numbers were off the chart. He subsisted McDonald's alone. Okay? Yeah, in about a month. In about a month. Spurlock, right? Morgan Spurlock. Yeah, so.
But that's the sad part about a lot of diabetics. They become so frustrated. They don't want to be restricted. They don't want to make change. But as I tell people, make change while you have the choice to change. Don't change because you no longer have any choice, such as the lady in the video. She can't now gain her leg back. She cannot fix the agony that she has gone through. And so now she's stuck. I mean, her life will never be the same again. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people, that is the attitude that they have. And they just don't care anymore. And that's the very, very unfortunate, sad part. And so, you know, I know it's hard. And it doesn't mean that you have to just eat a salad all the time. It's all about balance. If you're eating a good ratio of raw foods to your cooked foods, you're going to find that you can have a small portion of something that actually might be pleasing or tasteful, okay? And, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to give up everything, okay?
Question. All right. I listened to the lady that was speaking about her friend who didn't seem to care. A lot of people seem like they don't care, but there are also people that might even be in this place right here. They're struggling with issues as well. And I was wondering if you address the addictive properties or qualities of what they're manufacturing, because a lot of times when people are dealing with the withdrawal and the addictive properties of these sugars, and these additives that have been placed in the products, they feel helpless and they feel like there's no point. I just was wondering if you had an opportunity to address that, and I'd like to offer a word of encouragement for anyone and everyone who is dealing with this to truly call on the Holy Spirit to help them, because there is nothing that cannot be overcome by the power of the Word. Specifically, 2 Corinthians 10:3-5. That's what I want to just offer.
Yes.
Especially the addictive properties, if you haven't had a chance to cover that.
Yes, unfortunately, with the addictive properties, for one, when you're eating these sugars, they create, you know, you just get more and more cravings. And that's the sad part. Once you've started the cycle, it's like you just want more and more and more. The sad part is it's not just about, and I know she covered this, I think, a little bit last night and some today, it's not just about the types of food that we're eating, it's what's being put into the food that creates these cravings. It's almost like a drug. They almost can't help it. And this is not just for diabetics. This is even for people who are eating and don't have this diagnosis of yet. But we are fueled by other things that cause us to be so just don't care anymore. The other thing is that with diabetes, when your blood sugar is out of control, and you've got these ups and downs, so you're eating these high-carb meals, and then you take your meds, the blood sugar falls some, you're up and you're down, that creates a very depressive, moody disposition. And when you're depressed and you're moody and, you know, the sugar levels are all over the place, you just start to not care. you know, and that's an unfortunate part. And then the sad part too is a lot of people just don't know. They think it's okay to go through this cycle of, you know, having that supersized meal and then just supplementing with the medications. So sometimes education and knowledge is power, and when people know these things, they make a stronger effort, okay? And so that's why we need to encourage one another and, you know, pray for one another too, because it's an addictive cycle, unfortunately. Okay, yes?
Yes, can type 2 diabetes be reversed?
Yes, it can. Yes, and of course, you know, we don't like to make claims to that, but it has been done many, many times by various practitioners and under different scenarios, yes. Okay. Now I know, I'm sorry, we'll take just a few more questions and then we are going to wrap it up, unfortunately. Okay.
I just had something to say because my mom kind of went right through these steps that we're actually talking about.
Okay.
She was diabetic had to be over 20 years. Yeah, it had to be about over 20 years. And then I remember she got the phone call because she had to go on dialysis. And then she kept asking the doctor, was there a pill she could take so she wouldn't have to go on dialysis?
Yes.
Then she went on dialysis for a few years. And then next thing she had cancer.
Yes.
She actually passed away July 4th of 2015. And listening to this, I'm like, wow, it all makes sense. My mom went right through all that. I mean, I used to argue with her about things she shouldn't eat or changed it, but, you know, she wanted to eat what she wanted to eat. And sometimes I used to give her a choice. Well, Mom, you can eat that ice cream or you get the cake. You one or the other. Can't both. And she'll be like, well, just give me a little bit more. And so we went through that with her, and now I'm just learning. And actually, you know, even for me, my sister definitely probably need to be careful and be checked, because then my grandmom got her diabetes. She's like 80-something when she ended up being diabetic. And then now I have an uncle, Larry, who passed away in January. He was diabetic, and so was my uncle Isaac. So that's just in my mom's sister's brother. So.
And a lot of it is because of the diet and how we're eating. We're fueling the diagnosis, okay? Sometimes you have to go on a sugar fast, lots of water to get that out, cleansing. Of course, I do not recommend, you know, home cleansing and these cleansing kits, so I want to make that very clear. But sometimes just kind of resetting the system, getting all of that out. Also, too, sometimes you have to understand is that we have these cravings because of deficiencies in the body. So you want to look at that aspect as well. Yes, some on an individual basis, yes. Okay, we'll take two more questions.
I just wanted to make a statement. I have been in and out of diabetes. Like one time, I started with blood pressure.
Okay.
Blood pressure was high. I came to you. I went to the Voice in the Wilderness. Came back, was fine for years.
Wonderful.
Controlling through diet. Then I ended up with the diabetes pre-diabetic. No medicine. I controlled it through diet. Then I got pregnant, got gestational diabetes, and I had to have the insulin because of the baby.
Yes, absolutely.
So I had the insulin, then I went off, and I had 3 pregnancies and off of it.
Okay.
But after the last pregnancy, I was older. And with her, I ended up becoming a diabetic.
Yes.
So I changed, you know, my whole lifestyle, eating and exercising, and was controlling it. Had a very bad car accident. It all came back.
Yes.
So then I started just exercising and changing my eating habits and everything again. And then I developed asthma at 52, which I had asthma, I guess, all my life. Had bad allergies, but never, I had the attack. So 2 months down, prednisone, all the other stuff, my sugars were out of whack.
Off the chart, yes.
So now I'm trying, once again, so I'm trying to say that even though you can be off of the meds, if you have things happen in your life, I guess it's in your life because I end up back in that same state. So I'm fighting again to get my sugars down. When I got off the prednisone, it was like at 3-something or 2-something, but now I'm down to 124.
Awesome.
And I do know that before sugar that fast has to be under 99.
So it can be done, but it's a lot of discipline. So when you see people that are diabetic that eat things they shouldn't, it's because you cannot have, it's discipline.
Yes,
and it's
it is.
all the time. It is constant. So it's a struggle.
Yes.
And I think people look at it as if it shouldn't be. Or if I was sick like that, I would this
just
and I would
behave.
that. But it is
Exactly.
not. You change your whole lifestyle, and it has to be forever. And
Yes.
when things happen in your life, you have to go right back and over. And I'm like, God, why am I in this situation all over again? What did I miss?
And that's where you want to ascertain the cause. So like you did, kind of backtrack. And unfortunately, because of the accident or the gestational diabetes, then you have hormones that play a role. Because the body's in a hormonal turmoil during pregnancy, and some of that can be hormones. So you need to look at where the hormones are after a scenario like that. Or such as, prednisone and steroids, they will really raise the blood sugar through the roof. So praise God that you are barreling through and staying on track and trying to get yourself back to where you need to be. That very good. Yes, very good. Yes, for our last question.
Yeah, someone asked about craving. I think what I find with cravings, eating small amounts of nuts. Of course, nuts they have the healthy fats. You still have to wash them. But a lot of times we avoid nuts because we think they're fattening, and we don't eat them at all. But nuts are very satisfying, and you're allowed, I believe, like for almond, you're allowed probably, I think it's 20 per day, and you can have that in 3 servings throughout the day, and that will cut down on your hunger.
Well, 3 servings of almond, a serving of almond 3 times a day in one day is excessive.
Yes, but I'm saying 3 times is the 20 broken up over 3.
Oh, you mean broken up?
Broken
Okay,
up
yes.
over 3. Because every day I have 20 almonds, but I'll eat it 3 times throughout the day, and I find that that helps to keep me satisfied. Also, avocado is another one of the healthy. I find that the healthy fats will keep you satisfied without you having to worry about it spiking your insulin and you being hungry and having all that craving. I find that the healthy fats help with that a lot.
Yes, and healthy fats are good, but even for a diabetic, you still have to eat them in moderation and watch how much. Now, one of the things that I suggest for the fats or for the hunger and the cravings is you're going to find if you are eating the proper ratio of raw foods, you're going to find that you are not going to get that hungry. The reason being is these live foods have your vitamins, your minerals, your nutrients, and especially if you're getting them fresh. So they're nourishing you. They have the fiber so that they are suspending and digesting very slowly. I heard of that concept of a raw meal will last longer than a cooked meal. And I fought it for the longest because I'm like, think about what you're saying. It doesn't really make sense. Raw food has the ability to digest quicker than a cooked meal. So how are you going to tell me that that's going to last longer than a cooked meal? When I put it to the test, I am absolutely amazed. I can eat just a salad, and it could take me through the entire day. There's some days that I might have a heavy load of seeing clients, so for me to eat a salad, you need to be able to sit and take your time to chew it. So I might eat more cooked that day. I'm like 1 or 2 clients in, and I'm like, oh no, I'm starving. I am hungry. So it is truth. If you eat a good amount, a good ratio of raw food, which ideally is 75% raw food to 25% cooked, no less than 50-50, you're going to find that especially for diabetic balance, it's going to keep you out of trouble. So if a diabetic is eating 75% raw food, especially if it's of more of the vegetable kingdom and the 25% of something cooked healthy, you're going to find that's going to help you create good balance, okay? I thank you guys for bearing with us through all of the issues that we've had. I had so much more that I wanted to show you, but I hope that this was a blessing for you. I am going to take a minute because I want to try to see if I am able to show you those pictures of the cells, okay? So I don't know if our dear brother would bless us with one of those lovely songs, if he's still up to it, while I try to get those going for you guys, okay? All righty. And I again thank you for bearing with me, but I hope that you were blessed. Okay, and I will be back.
All right. It was a pleasure to have that seminar. I hope you're blessed with this song. This song is entitled More Than Anything, and it says, Lord, I love you more than anything.
for a quick few minutes. So a lot of you know tomorrow I am going to be here doing wellness consults and you heard me talking about the blood of somebody who is diabetic and what it looks like and why the insulin molecule cannot get into the cells. We can play that first slide. Can we play the first slide? That was the one I wanted earlier. Okay, so this is a picture of a client of mine who is diabetic, okay? As you could see, those cells are clumped. They're on top of each other. They're very toxic. The plasma in which they are floating in is very minimal, okay? There should probably be a couple cells to that entire screen. But as you can see, those cells are clustered together, okay? Each one of those cells is a tiny factory that expels waste and takes in water, nutrients, and hormones, including the insulin molecule, okay? So when those cells are in that toxic, acidic condition, that process is not happening, okay? So it's important to restore that balance. We'll go to the next slide. Oops. This is another client of mine who was also diabetic, okay? Now, I don't know if you can see from, well, I think it's more visible on this side, all of those white dots. Those are actually the fat molecules floating in the plasma, okay? So we know that there is a too high, the pancreas is being very worn out. Those cells are literally looking like stacked coins, like little snakes. Those cells should be singular, so their ability to do what they need to do in keeping us healthy is absolutely not happening. It can't, okay? Now, this next slide is, there was another one that I wanted, but this is when it was partially corrected. As you can see, the cells are much more separate. However, they could even be more separate than that, okay? Now I want to take you to, so we're going to go to the other one. We're going to look at a person who came to our program, hopefully. The devil is working tonight, and we are just going to defeat him, okay? Was this yours? Yeah, this one's not showing very well. But the cells should be, as you saw in the previous one, but I was wanting you to see this one because the cells were just exquisite. There was just a few to each slide, and they were perfectly round, and I always marvel because when children see blood like this, their first thing is bubbles, Mommy, because it does. It looks like just bubbles on the screen, not clumped up cells that cannot do their job, okay? So this is why when the blood in both of those two previous ones that were blood of a diabetic, when clients go through the program and we address all those major body systems and cleansing and restore that pH balance, that's what it does to the blood. So now your body is a level of what we call homeostasis. And that's kind of resetting the body to the point where now it can begin the process of healing and rebuilding, okay? So if you are interested in having this analysis done, definitely see Pastor Leggett, and we'll see if we can get you in, okay? I thank you again for your patience. I do apologize that we didn't get to all of the autoimmune stuff, because I know that's what a lot of you wanted to realize, to hear about. But, when we were talking about, I'm not going to go through that one, talking about gut health is so important in the autoimmune process, okay? And so I know what Mrs. Dawson covered the other night. That is number one, piece one, because most people who are diabetic or have an autoimmune issue are also experiencing what's called leaky gut. How many of you here have heard of leaky gut? Okay, and that is where food particles are literally leaking through the walls and getting into the blood system, and then the immune system responds to that. And that's when you start developing things like inflammation, your inflammation markers go up, you're feeling achy, you're very stiff, and the autoimmune issue starts to progress, okay? If you want to see a picture of what that looks like, we can do that really quick. The live one of the real leaky gut. You want to do it? I could do it really quick. If you give me a minute, I'll pull it up really quick.
Let me say this while we're waiting. When Ann and I were pastoring in Chester, we brought them in. We had just come back from our very first program, October '94. We brought them to Chester. And we brought them for a series. In fact, the summer of '95, we did a crusade together. They did 4 weeks. They did the first 2 weeks of the crusade. And every time they came, the city was coming to Macedonia like crazy. Residents from the city of Chester were flocking our church. In fact, there was so much buzz in the city that one day the Muslims showed up to find out what in the world was going on at 601 Yarnell Street. Now, here's what you have to understand about that scenario. In the African American community, the Muslims think that they have the black community on lockdown. They also think that they have the message for health for African American people. And everybody was flocking to Macedonia because we were doing 3-day programs. During those 3 days, I invited some of my family members came. They all bulked at our house, and they went through the 3 days. In 3 days, they typically do a 10-day program. In 3 days, Junior Williams' his blood sugar was off the chain. And at the end of 3 days, he left, it was 99. Okay? His blood sugar level was 99. His blood sugar level was 99. In 3 days, that's unheard of. Okay? And so on our very first trip, you ready? See, I got a million stories. I got a million stories. I'm telling you, I've seen healing that takes place at the facility, the likes of which it's just, if you didn't see it, you may not believe it, okay? Individuals going home to their doctors after having been diagnosed with brain tumors, they go back to the doctors and they can't find a brain tumor. Blood sugar's perfected, whole 9 yards. And here's what I want to say to you. God has a program that is second to none when you follow it. Okay? It is the reason why Loma Linda, California is one of the 8 or 9 blue zones across the world. What does that mean? A blue zone is an area in the world where individuals live longer than anybody else on the planet. There are about 8 of them across the world. Loma Linda, California is one of them. Why Loma Linda? It is an Adventist city where Loma Linda University is. Okay? We are one of the 8. When you follow the program, it works. And the U.S. government knows it. What do they know? They know that Adventists who follow the program live 10 to 12 years longer than the average American. That is why on 2 different occasions, the United States government paid the Seventh-day Adventist Church to do the Adventist Health Study. I don't know if you guys did it here, but we did it at Mount Olivet in Camden when I was pastor in the 90s. They paid the church to find out what in the world we're doing differently than anybody else. Now, what is that saying to us? It's saying we have a program that we need to follow, okay? And medical science can't duplicate it because they operate on a different protocol. So here's what I want to say to you. We have been raised for such a time as this. I can't tell you the number of individuals that I've sent to this program and their lives have changed. Why did Jesus do more healing than anything else? It's because when you touch a person's life and you move them from point A to point B, they are so grateful that they cry out to you, "What must I do to be saved?" Well, what do? We do it just we do it backwards. We throw religion at them first instead of changing their lives in a significant way. Here's what I'm saying to Grace. We now have an opportunity. We can change the health of the city of Norristown. And when we do that the way God destined that we could, we won't have room enough in this church. We won't have room enough. Amen? So now it's up to us to decide where we want to go from here. All right? Because I am going to bring them back. And next time when the kitchen and everything is filled, we need to do, now you need to learn how to embrace God's program because it works. Danielle.
Okay, so I told you I would show you those 2 slides or pictures of what a leaky gut looks like. Okay, the first one is one of the things while he's working on that, for those of you who are interested in autoimmune things, there is a series that recently was put out, and you can view this on YouTube or Netflix. I think it might also be available on Amazon, but it's called Autoimmune Secrets, and it's an 8 or 9 part series. And I appreciate this series, especially when you look at the first episode, because I totally agree with his theories on the causative factors of autoimmune issues. Okay, so that's a good resource. I know we didn't get to touch on that a lot, so that's going to be really, really beneficial for you to watch. Okay. Oh, I don't remember. We can get his name. Yes. Oh, okay. Can I get the first one? Okay, so I have to turn around. I didn't realize we had it this way. So this is a picture of the gut lining. As you can see off to the right-hand side, the gut lining is very tight-knitted together, okay? And so therefore, there's no leaky gut there. But as you can see by those 2 spaces, that's when the gut becomes leaky. Now we have undigested food particles, microorganisms, and toxins leaking through that gut. And that is when the body begins that autoimmune process, okay? Now we're going to see an actual visual of it, and that's a little bit more sobering because as you can see, all of those little holes in the digestive system, and that is where, again, those microorganisms and toxins are leaking through the gut, causing that autoimmune response. So when you cleanse the system, reset the body, I have a story. Should I just very, very quickly? Okay. I like to talk a lot like him. We have a similar issue. But I got it honest. I had a father who had the same problem, so. I had a client, and I get so many calls from so many people, okay, and we're actually going to be putting her story on video because it's so phenomenal. She is from the Boston area, and she called me, and she says, I have 4 of the rarest autoimmune diseases in this combination. And she had went through almost every medication known for autoimmune issues. And at this point, she was on the highest dose. She couldn't go any higher, okay? And so basically, she had actually almost died a couple times because her immune issues were so severe. And in speaking to her over the phone, she wanted to attend the program in an effort to kind of halt the progression of where she was. because of these autoimmune diseases, she has had many surgeries to try to correct them, and she's one in like millions of who has this rare combination. She has top specialists in Boston who she's been working with. So she's basically handicapped, and so our building does have stairs. So I was just letting her know where I was going to put her, where I felt she would be most comfortable and wouldn't have to move as much. And she was like, oh, I guess I'll be just kind of stuck, And I says, one thing I like to tell my clients, and I says, it's not a guarantee or, it doesn't happen to everybody, but we often see a lot of people come in not able to walk very well. Through the process of getting this waste out that is antagonizing and putting the body into a very inflamed state, you see changes. And she immediately, no. I understand where I am. I'm a handicapped woman. I'm not looking for these things to change. And I again tried to encourage her that she might see some minimal changes in where she was. And again, she just flat out shut me down and says no, like she didn't even want to look for any hope. She came to the program, and by the second day, she was already starting to go up and down the stairs. By the third day, she was starting to venture outside. By the fourth day of the program, one of the things, and she's a very spiritual woman, and she says, the thing that saddens me the most is I can't even do praying hands. Her hands were like this. And she was just like, I just want to put my hands and have praying hands. If to dress herself or even for sweater or something, she couldn't barely get her hand to her shoulder, okay? And just over, on that fourth day, I heard her coming down the stairs, and I would always listen so that I could make sure she was okay. And I got to the stairs, and she's just bawling in tears, and I'm like, what's the matter? Are you okay? And she's just like, she came down, and she goes, hallelujah. Her hands, she could lift them over her head. And then she did praying hands. And she says, I had no idea that it was these toxins that were inflaming my body and causing my body to turn on itself. So there is a lot of hope for people who have autoimmune issues. We've worked with a lot of them, and she continually calls me in tears, like, this woman didn't sweat. And she calls me from her car one day, and she's like, Danielle, I got this feeling. And I'm like, what feeling? What's the matter? She goes, stuff is dripping down my face and I'm hot. She said, I'm sweating. She's like, I have never sweated in my life. So, again, the skin is the largest organ of elimination. If you don't get that system working, those toxins are trapped. And she continually calls me every now and then. Like she said, she went to her doctor, and her doctor's like, I have to refer my clients to these places. So she's always calling me with these stories, and I just marvel all the time about her progress, So for those of you who have autoimmune issues, there is hope. For those of you who are diabetic, there is hope, okay? So be encouraged. Thank you for your time and your patience for our difficulties, but I hope that you were blessed, okay?
Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Oh. It's only 20. You're going to need more. Can you run them? Oh, awesome. Sister Dawson this morning promised people charts. How many of you want a chart? Put your hand up. You're going to make it more. And we're coming around with the offering simultaneously. Put your hand up. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes. Mommy got it. All right. Earlier, I don't know if I did it last night. Cherie, come, please. Explain. Here you go. You want to hold it?
During Sabbath school this morning, we talked about what is disease, and we talked about enervation. And for those of you who were not here, the upper rainbow-looking section are the things that cause and create enervation. And so we went over them step by step, and if you look at them, it's not always, right. Enervation, low nerve energy. If you see the word nerve is in there, and so it's like living in a brownout. We know what a blackout is, but a brownout is when electricity in your home is running at maybe a peak here, and it goes, and it continues to run, but it's not given everything you need. And so our bodies can run on a brownout because of the choices that we have made in our life. And so this is just a list on the top section, the rainbow section, that is contributing to this brownout. And so I don't know if we need to go through it, but I'll go through it real quick. Much mental study, lack of exercise, lack of sunshine, lack of sleep, coffee, tea, excessive dancing or aerobics, whatever you want to call it, lack of fresh air, overeating, sex abuse, alcohol, drugs, impure water, fluoridation, vaccines, medicine, tobacco, meat, spirit of criticism, mental depression, jealousy, worry, anger, envy, hellfire and brimstone teaching, lack of faith, overwork, shock, grief, fear, and improper food flows through them all. Now, I want you, these are the things that are creating this low nerve energy in our bodies. And when we have, when our body is not properly working at its optimum, then the body cannot get rid of the waste. Every day our body's producing waste. Cellular waste, tissue waste, and digestive waste. We're all needing to eliminate waste all the time. And so what happens is that when you're running at a lowered nerve energy, you have what you call checked elimination. Now the body's not getting rid of that waste product. And then when it's not getting rid of that waste product, you'll have a buildup of toxemia or buildup of toxins in the body, because disease is the effort of the body to get rid of waste. And when it cannot do that, it's going to still try to do its best. And so then you end up with disease symptoms. So the disease symptoms is telling you that your body is trying to get rid of those toxins, okay? And so this is a chart that I had promised to those who were here that I would give you as a reminder of the things that are causing the brownout, the enervation in our bodies, which leads to disease.
Amen. And now I'm going to ask First Lady if she'll come up. We got a drawing to do as I promised. Now, I want you to know that I made an executive decision. I made an executive decision. The executive decision is, and the plan is, Danielle, thank you. Get at the P. Oh, okay. Okay. The purpose and goal of all of this is to bless us, but it's not just to bless us, right? Because if we're in church, if we're in an Adventist church, we should be exposed to this information, right? We should be. However, we have neighbors and co-workers and friends who don't attend our churches, and they're not exposed to the information that we are blessed to be exposed to and privy to. But do they need to know it as well? Yes, they do. So the purpose of this weekend was not just to be a blessing to us, but to be a blessing to individuals in our community. All right? And so as I explained earlier, I particularly wanted to reach out to individuals in the community and to be a blessing to them. However, we had just one individual to respond, and they came, and they are not an Adventist. They don't hold membership in any church. They came last night. They were not here today. My executive decision is I want to reach out. In fact, I've already reached out to the family. Okay? My goal is to get them here on tomorrow. So that means we're going to do a drawing for one other individual. So your name should be in here, and I'm going to ask the First Lady if she would do the honor. So, and the reason why I'm letting her pick it, if she doesn't pick your name, you can get mad at her, not me. And the winner is she's here. Kimberly, can you make it tomorrow? Now, here's the time slots I have. There are 30-minute time slots from 10 to 10:30, 10:30 to 11, 11 to 11:30. No, I'm giving you the time slots I already have taken. Yeah, these are the ones that are already taken, okay? No, my bad. 9 to 10 is open, okay? From 10 to 12 is taken. Danielle will take a half an hour break, and then she'll come back at 12:30, all right, and begin at 12:30. So from 9 to 10 or from 12:30 on, all right? What's good for you? You do it at 9? Danielle? Okay. Danielle, we have a 9. Now that means that now you're going to be in my office, which is a closed environment, okay? And the equipment will be in there because you need privacy. This is your personal and private information that she's going to be discussing. So you'll be in that closed room. I have a backup. Yes, Holly. Yeah. Got you. Right. Sure. What time is it going to be? Because that's also communion Sabbath for us. Okay. Okay. Amen. So 9 o'clock, we're going to need somebody to open up tomorrow. Yes, Al? Okay. All right. I got it. Okay. We'll talk about it. Jen, you going to open? Awesome. Jen, come, make an announcement. Now, we just approved this in board meeting, so we haven't had a chance to share this. I don't even know if you know this. We're going to have a fellowship exchange with the Mount Olivet Church in January. The third Sabbath in January. What's going to happen is Mount Olivet is going to come here and fellowship with us. Their pastor, Pastor Cobley Matlock, will speak in the morning. We'll have lunch. The AY department will bring us AY. And then our goal is to either get to Carver or another building in the evening after sunset, and then we will fellowship, play games, have fun, whole 9 yards. Okay? That's third Sabbath in January. All right? They're coming to us. And then we're going to reciprocate. We got to come up with another date. We will go and fellowship with them and spend the day with them. So our fellowship exchange program, we begin with Mount Olivet, okay? So Jen has an announcement she wants to make. Jen, come.
Thank you, Pastor. Good evening. Haven't we been blessed today? The announcement that I have is very quick. Mount Olivet is also in the middle of a building project, and every 2 years we hold a gala. This year our gala will be on December 16th. And our theme is painting the town red. So we're coming out with our best red dresses and our nice tuxes and tuxedos and red ties and the like to have a wonderful evening together. There will be, as you can see there will be a silent, it's not on that back screen. There will be a silent auction. Babe, I don't know your passwords. I need you to open this up here. There will be a silent auction. There will also be some entertainment by Marcus Wiley. It's a great time. There's a full-scale dinner. There'll also be a fashion show. There'll be a live band. We do try to have a good time. I'm sorry? December 16th. It's December 16th. It starts at 5 p.m. is the cocktail hour. We'd love to have you there. There's 3 main people who can get in contact with. Myself, Jennifer Eugene. Pastor has all of my information. I'm sure half of the East Coast knows Lorraine Watkins at this point. But she's also one of our main people, as well as Lori Williams. And if anyone wants any of our information, please just let us know. We'd love to have you, because the more fun, he has all of our information. So the more the merrier. It is formal. Full-length gowns for ladies, a suit or tux for a gentleman. But it's a great time, and if you have the time, we'd love to see you there. It's will be in New Jersey. It's in Berlin at Lucian's Manor. So, and if you decided to come and well, I don't want to drive all the way back, I'm sure one of us can find some place for you to stay tonight. Yes, ma'am. The cost, it's $80 a ticket. Okay? Thank you, Pastor.
Let's stand for our closing prayer. I do want you to know that this is the first trip of the Dawsons. They will be back, amen? And when they come back, we need to pack this church. We need folk from the community, because their lives can be changed, all right? And that's what we want to be about. We want to be about impacting the neighborhood. I'm going to pray, and at the same time, baby, did you take the offering, or did I take it? Did I? Okay, here it is. Let's pray. Father God, thank you. Thank you for what our eyes have seen, our ears have heard, our hearts have felt. Lord, it is clear to us that you have a plan to bless us mentally, physically, and spiritually, and take us to another level. It is your plan that we become a disease-free people. It is your plan that we would be so disease-free that the world would be the path to our door, and it would ask us, what in the world are you doing? And we would have an opportunity to give a Bible study and to impact not just our churches, not just our communities, but our cities, towns, states, this country, this world. That's the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So, if nobody else embraces that mission, my prayer is that Grace Tabernacle will. And if and when we do, we will make an incredible impact on this entire town, on entire families. Lord, my prayer is that this church would see this vision and embrace it and run with it. Finally, bless this offering, that it will be used for the purpose of spreading the gospel in this portion of the vineyard. In Jesus' name we ask it. For his sake, I pray. Amen. Amen.